All right, we are live.
Okay, thank you. I have the time at 7 o'clock, and I'm going to go ahead and call this regular German Township Board of Trustees meeting to order. If you could please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Could you please take the roll, Mr. Heaston?
Mrs. Reed.
Here.
Mr. Stubbs.
Here.
And Mr. Raymert.
Here.
Everyone is present.
All right, thank you. And there was a little bit of a miscommunication earlier when I made the agenda, and so I am going to make a slight change to the agenda. My understanding is that Mr. Richards is going to make a presentation this evening, and so I had him down under Haley. So I'm going to go ahead and move him up as long as there's no objections to that. That way he can give his presentation, and you're more than welcome to stay if you'd like, Mr. Richards, or you can go. I'm sure you have plenty of other things to do. So I'm going to turn this meeting over to you. You are muted, so we can't hear you, Mr. Richards.
You would think that after doing enough of these, I would remember to unmute. For the past 6 months, I've used, I think, every platform out I would refer to unmute, but yet we still forget. So thank you for having me here tonight. I do appreciate that. And Haley is going to be my assistant in the background to move through the presentation, and I appreciate her doing that. Any technological mistakes are entirely her fault, and I have nothing to do with. So, Haley, thank you so much for everything that you're doing. So, no, it's very exciting times. It's a challenging time for us with schools, and I know that everybody wants to talk about schools, and I wish I could tell everybody a magic crystal ball of what the future is going to be like, but we just don't know. But what I do know is that we've worked together as a teaching staff and with the administration and with the Board of Education. When I was first hired, we came together and we created a strategic plan where we came up with a mission statement and vision statement. And our mission statement is we are an educational community committed to fostering lifelong learning. We have core values that we are committed to educational excellence by demonstrating collaboration, inclusivity, responsibility, respect, and resourcefulness. And we were focused on that. We did a great job of working with the Ohio School Boards Association to come up with that. But that in and of itself doesn't advance our district forward. That just gives us a foundation to do that. So this past summer, despite everything going on, we actually spent some time working collaboratively to come up with an action plan. And so that's going to be what we do a presentation about. So we have a strategic plan. These are actions. Saying that we are an educational community committed to fostering lifelong learning is great. But what does that mean? What are we going to see? What is our community going to see as a difference for that? So we wanted to create, I don't know if everybody on here, it's used in business, it's used in education a lot. We have SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So we created a number of SMART goals as we go through. So at the very top of all this, and Haley's pulling this from our website, and anybody can go on and see a copy of this. We've sent it out via Parent Square to any parent in our community, but it's open to anybody. So we have 5 key areas. So we're going to start with, at the top, academic achievement. And so here are the action plans that we're going to be doing. Number 1, first, we're going to provide a diverse curriculum option to develop individual skill sets for all students. So what exactly does that mean? We're going to examine our district AP, which is advanced placement. Those are kind of college level offerings, including the number of population of students taking the class, and explore adding new options based on interest levels by May 21st, 2021. You're going to see May 21st, 2021 a lot. That means it's our goal that we are going to do these things by the end of the year. We have now, I believe, 4 AP course offerings, and we've been increasing that. When I was hired, we had 2, so we've doubled that to 4, and we're going to continue looking at advanced placement offerings for our kids. That's really helpful for all the kids that are looking at going to college. We also know that we need to examine our implementation of district STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math opportunities in grades K through 12. We are now in our 2nd year of having a STEM class in grades 7 through 8 as an elective. That is taught by Mrs. Weaver, who has now actually achieved, as of 2 weeks ago, over the course of her career, over $250,000 worth of grants that she has brought into Valley View local schools. And that's just her. She has all the toys. But we want to make sure that not just grades 7 through 8 have STEM. We want to make sure all of our kids in grades K through 12 have access to STEM opportunities. The next one is kind of educational jargon. Is we're going to implement a multi-tiered system of support, MTSS, implementing strong focus on tier 1 instructional strategies. What these all are talking about for this is we know when we need to help kids, there are some things that we can do that really just help all kids. That's kind of tier 1. There are things that we can do that benefit all kids. But then there are some things that we need to do that are going to benefit more specific kids that have more specific needs. And we want to be able to do that as we continue moving along. So next slide, Haley. There we go. You are very good at this. Plans. We're going to collect and review student survey data to drive instruction. While we're saying we want to focus on STEM, what are the other things that we need to take a look at? What are things that parents think are important that we add? Is it important that we talk about adding? We now only have Spanish at the high school. Is adding another foreign language? Is that important to us? Is adding business courses? Is that important to us? We've already started offering very small but mentorship opportunities for our kids this past year. So we want to take a look at those things. But we also want to create and build a focus on more in-class instruction electives and appropriate activities based around career and life skills. That's something that we know we need to do a lot more of, is working on those soft skills. And you're going to see that come up again in another slide. But we also want to examine how to set up a method for surveying past Valley View graduates. We want to sit there and say, when kids left Valley View, did they feel prepared? 2 years later, did they still feel prepared? What are the things that they maybe looking back go, hey, we thought we were prepared when we left high school, but 2 years afterwards, man, we need to do this and this and this. Or they're going, it was fantastic. You know, we had to write a lot, which we hated in high school, but it really benefited us. We want to survey students, staff, and parents to gain feedback on school climate and culture, and also survey students to gain information about social emotional needs and their areas of strength by May 21st. We know that that's important. That social emotional component is really key for us right now with our kids, and we know that. Next slide. Student development. Here are some soft skills, and I actually have a meeting on Thursday to help with this, with some of these components. We want to create graduates that are financially and soft skill literate. You might hear soft skills referred to as other things, business skills, life skills, but we know that from listening to employers that it's not just the reading, writing, and arithmetic that kids need to be able to do. They need to know how to communicate with one another. They need to know how to work collaboratively. They need to know how to show up on time and not be on their cell phone the entire time while they are at work. These are things that we want to be able to talk to our community and business leaders in our community to see what we can do to help. We want to create, have a financial literacy component in grades K through 12. We've already been working with First National Bank of Germantown to assist us with that process so that we can collaborate with them as we work towards something. But we know there's a graduation requirement that says we have to make sure we teach financial literacy to kids before they graduate. But we really want to embed that in kids from K through 12. And talking with the bank, we need to make sure we're teaching kids at a young age about how to save money. I've been working on that with my 2 kids. I have an 8th grader and a 6th grader. One of them is very good at the idea of saving money. The other one struggles with that. I don't know if anybody else has this phenomenon where they have 2 kids and they're a little different. One of them, they get money in their pocket and it's gone. The other one, I think, has saved $120 without spending a dime. So we want to make sure we can teach kids how to save money. We want to make sure that we work on those soft skills and come up with a list of 5 to 10 soft skills that we think we need. And we'd like to work with our community to figure out with our local employers, what are they seeing are the most important things? When they're hiring people, what are they struggling to find? We also want to cultivate climate that fosters awareness of the whole self and others. Already this year, we are participating in an equity workshop through the Montgomery County Equity Leadership Institute. I'm a part of that along with members of my leadership team, where we can just make sure we are sensitive to everybody's needs and to make sure that as we move forward, we all move forward together. We're also fostering awareness of self and others through the whole child team during the 2021 school year. The whole child team is making sure we talk about other things other than just reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's making sure that our kids have the social and emotional skills to be successful in the school year. Next. Community partnerships. This is the one I'm very excited to talk about. We are going to maximize community resources to focus students on their continuous improvement. We are going to implement a Classroom Connect program at the beginning of the 21-22 school year. The best way to imagine this is, I'm going to pick on Haley, my lovely clicker for this presentation. So maybe Haley, with what she does, we partner her with a social studies teacher. So she can talk about what local government's like from her end. And it's just a person that the teacher can reach out to on a regular basis. Think of it kind of like a classroom benefactor, but with no money being exchanged. Just somebody that we can use their time and expertise. And when the teacher wants to talk, get some real world perspective for how some of these things can be useful in the classroom, it's somebody that we can use. Obviously, with the joy of technology now, we can bring that person directly into the classroom without them having ever left their home. So that's something that we're excited about. We're also going to provide something I know is big for a lot of people in this community. It is our goal to provide wraparound services for as early as the beginning of the 21-22 school year. Now, I will say that one's pretty ambitious, but I think our goal is to be able to provide preschool for all. Currently, this year, we turned away 40 kids from our preschool. I won't bore you with all the data right now. If you want me to come back and talk about preschool data at some point in time, I'd be happy to do so. But I don't think you guys want me talking for another 15, 20 minutes. So I'll move on. But we want to have preschool for all. And we need to make sure that we're taking care of kids before and after school. And with preschool, our preschool model is really difficult for working parents. And we want something where, and I have some experience with this in my past district, where there's an option where you could drop off your kids at 6:30 in the morning and pick them up at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And during that time, we have provided lunch for them and we're taking care of them and providing them with an education. That's going to benefit our parents, but most importantly, it benefits our kids. The other thing that I'm very excited about, and if people on here would like to be a part of this next one, I'd be very excited. We're going to try to create an education and local business roundtable to begin quarterly meetings in January 21st. This is where we can get business people together within our community and say, what are those soft skills? What are the mentorship and internship opportunities that we have with some of our kids? I'm going to pick on, I do know Mr. Raymer just a little bit, and I know he works down in Cincinnati. That's an awful far drive for some of our kids to go, but maybe they can work virtually within talking with him to find out if they are interested in a career in finance, what they would need to do. What is that like? Getting some of those real world opportunities. The next two are the ones I'm probably the most excited about on this entire presentation. We are going to be looking at a community service day, a community service graduation requirement, beginning with the class of 2025. That is this year's 8th grade class. Conveniently enough, that is my daughter's class, and she is very excited about this opportunity. But we get our kids out in the community. Learning occurs outside the four walls of our school. We know that, and we want our kids to be able to see what's out there in the world and be able to give back to our community. And the second one is we're going to establish a K-8 community service project or day beginning with the 21-22 school year. So imagine that we just pick a date. We'll say it October 13th, where instead of coming to school today, the kids would have come to school and we would have immediately transport them out in the community to do things out and about. So as German Township start thinking about what are things that you would want a group of kids to do on a particular day, and we can provide a service for you where we can actually benefit our community and help our kids understand the importance of giving back and the importance of community. I'm very excited about those two items to get those off the ground. Next. Facilities. This is probably one of the topics I get asked the most questions about from time to time. This is all pretty easy. Most of you all know that we did pass a bond issue this spring to begin construction. I am not having any late breaking announcements today as to what the status is of that. We are still awaiting, as we've kind of reported, we are still awaiting from the state to find out when they are going to be able to provide their share of the funding. They have promised that that's going to happen, but obviously with the COVID situation, we don't know exactly when that's going to transpire. I'm hopeful that I'm going to know something any day now, but I was also told that about a month ago. So I will be sure to pass it along to anybody when we get that. But we want to make sure we talk about safety and accessibility with the new building, have a construction timeline in place, inform the community of the status of this, and make sure we create a plan to transition in and out of buildings throughout the construction project. The construction facility committee said, we really want to make sure we have maker spaces within the construction project. Think of a maker space like a library on steroids that also has 3D printers. It has green screens with computer editing software where we can just do a lot of things where our kids have hand-on experience. And something else that was very important to the facility committee was incorporating outdoor learning spaces in current buildings and new construction throughout the construction project. With where the land is that we're looking at building on, which is conveniently enough in German Township. I was just out there today and walking around. It's a pretty piece of land, and we should be able to use nature and the outdoor space because we have plenty of land for our purposes. So we're very excited about that. And the final slide. Haley, you've done a wonderful job since we're at the final slide. Good job.
Thanks.
Yes, I'm an educator. I'm used to giving positive reinforcement. So we're looking at finances. As always, we're a school. We're always going to be taking a look at finances. We're going to be looking at presenting a school finance 101 to staff and community twice a year. We're still having a conversation about how we can best go about that, especially in the COVID world. The COVID world kind of gives us some opportunities to do things like video and some new means that might reach more people. School finance is especially difficult. I honestly think if you would have tasked certain people with coming up with the most complicated funding formula ever, I don't think they could have actually come up with anything better than what we have. I do know that Speaker Cupp, when he was still in the House but not a speaker, was working on a formula called Cupp-Patterson. And I know that he's been pushing that through. It's substantially better and it's substantially more simplistic to help people understand. We also want to make sure we utilize our Board of Education financial presentations to inform the community. Another one that I'm very excited about that we're going to get off the ground is creation of an education foundation. And we're looking to get that off the ground by December 31st. That's pretty soon here, but I will tell you, we have the account created and we are now putting together the board of trustees for that education foundation. That's an education foundation that can meet some of the other goals and privately fundraise in areas that maybe the district, we just don't have time to go out and fundraise all the time for special projects. And that can be the arm of the education foundation. I think it can do some really good work for our kids in our community. Also continue to build key financial relationships within the community. And finally, making sure we're continuing to attract and retain high quality staff and administrators. We want to collect data from similar districts for compensation. Where do we stand? And we kind of have some of this information. Where do we stand on teacher salaries, benefits? Where do we stand compared to comparison school districts? Where do we stand compared to the districts that surround us, the districts within the county? And we want to do the same thing in talking about class sizes. And we want to be able to do all of that by the end of this year. So these are our action plans. We want to be transparent. We want to be open about it. We have published all of it. I think if you flip through, these are a lot of things for us to get through this year. It's going to keep us busy, but I feel pretty confident that we should be able to do all of those things. And I'm pretty confident that if we're able to do those things, we're going to continue to move our district forward. So that ends my presentation. I tried to be as quick as I can. I think 15 minutes is the fastest presentation I've ever done in my entire life. And some of you know me well enough to know that that's a true statement. But at this time, if you want, I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody would have for me about our strategic plan or anything else that I can do my best to answer.
Trustees,
Mr. Raymer.
No, I was just going to thank Mr. Richards for showing up tonight and giving us the presentation. I think it's a holistic plan, and I think it makes a lot of sense. It obviously is achievable and attainable, but I think it is aggressive, and I think it's great for the community. So I want to say thanks for showing up and doing that for us.
we're very happy and excited about it. And this is going to be the goal. So this is our goal for this year, what you just saw. Assuming that we achieve all of that, it's kind of an education philosophy. It's called praise and prompt. So this is our goal for this year. Hopefully we achieve it. This summer we have a little celebration to go, yay, we achieved everything. But now let's look at what comes next. And we need to keep moving our district forward and keep progressing, and which is the benefit for our kids and our entire community. I think we've been a little bit behind, and I think we need to be able to push ourselves into overdrive a little bit. This is a difficult year to do some of these things, but it's also a fantastic year to kind of make plans for what we need to do next year, when hopefully, I'm knocking on wood, if everybody else can as well, that hopefully next year we won't really have to be talking about COVID and all those rules and regulations that go with it. So that's kind of our hope, is that next year we're going to really be poised to take off, and hopefully we're going to be having already broken ground on a building, and we're moving ahead academically on some things. So I'm very excited. I like to say this a lot, with all due respect, and I know there's probably some people on here that graduated from Valley View, and I'm not meaning to disrespect anything from the past, but I still believe, despite all the successes that Valley View has had in the past, I still believe that our best days are still in front of us. And I'm very excited to see that for all of our kids. And I think the people that even have gone through Valley View, I think you would still hope that our best days are in front of us as well, because I think that's benefit for our kids.
I don't have anything that's really a question, but I do have to agree that your preschool program is amazing. Both my kids went through it. One's in it right now. Mr. Brad does fabulous.
Yes, he does.
When I was in school at Broadback Memories, when you were talking about partnering up with First National Bank, because we did that at Farmersville Elementary. So I'm glad hopefully you'll bring something like that back.
There we go.
Yeah, it was neat to see all the kids bring their money in and all that stuff. So, and as always, thank you for coming and presenting. I really appreciate it. Anytime we can stay in the loop with what's going on in our community, I think is great.
And I'm happy to come back anytime you guys want me to. So thank you for inviting me. But Ms. Reed, I think I might take you up on your invitation to respectfully and politely sign off at this time. But happy to come back and give an update on anything. If you guys ever want that, just let me know.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr.
you.
Richards,
Yes.
thank you for coming. Totally unrelated, but if you'd watch it for an email from me tonight, it has nothing to do with township or school. I have something for tomorrow. I need to just watch for an email from me tonight, please.
Okay.
You'll see when you get it. So
Sounds
not
good.
township, nothing with anything with this, but it's important for tomorrow.
Okay.
For something special tomorrow. So I'll leave it at that, but I'll send you an email as soon as this meeting's over.
I like special things. So thank you all very much.
All right,
I
thank
appreciate
you.
your time.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, I'm going to go back to the regular agenda and take visitor comments.
Let me unmute all of the people I believe are call in only. Give me just a moment. All right, I believe I have everybody unmuted that is call in only that cannot unmute themselves.
Sorry, I was talking and I was muted. Do we have any visitor comments? Any visitors that would like to come forward and ask questions or make any comment this evening? I am not seeing any. Anyone unmuting?
I will go ahead and mute everybody on my end.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we're going to move along to the fiscal officer's report. So Mr. Houston.
Good evening, everyone. I have a number of things this evening, not quite as many as I had at the September meeting, so hopefully we'll get through these quicker than we did last month. First of all, we have two sets of minutes to review and potentially approve tonight. One of them is the August 10th meeting, which I unfortunately forgot to send to you last month prior to the meeting. And so that you had not have an opportunity to approve that last month. And the second one is the September 14th meeting, our 2.5-hour meeting. And if you were able to get through all 9 pages of the minutes, if you have any changes to anything, please let me know.
I see no issues with the minutes and would like to make a motion to approve both sets of minutes.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Any discussion of the motion?
Thank you for doing all of that. That's got to be not fun.
I always go back and re-listen to the meeting, so not only do I get to enjoy it the first time, I get to enjoy it a second time. If there was no additional comments, all in favor of approving both sets of minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, sorry, Mr. Raymer didn't get a chance to chime in.
No, I was just saying aye. Yep, I'm in favor.
Thank you very much. So I guess there would be none opposed. Okay, we have the monthly financial reports that I sent you by email. You have the fund status report as of the end of September. You have the year-to-date cash summary by fund from January through the end of September. You have the September receipts, and you have the September payments. Any questions on any of the financial reports?
Just a really quick one on the vouchers. I noticed on the payment listing that vouchers 508 through 514 didn't appear to be on there. I think they're all usually sequential, so I didn't know what happened there.
What happens is you can post a voucher for a future period. And so the Germantown income tax, I actually posted that in the month of August, but it did not appear and it was not paid until September. So okay. Vouchers 508 through 514 were actually on my August report.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Could I have a motion to approve the financial reports and also authorize payment of the September bills, which are the warrants 50201 through 50238 and vouchers 507. Of course, we're missing a few numbers, but taking us through 581.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Vouchers are for the direct, sorry, Mr. Stubbs. Those vouchers are for payroll direct deposit, payroll and tax withholdings, EFTs, and other electronic payments.
My bad. Thank you. Make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Is there any discussion of the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think that was 3, so I assume there were none opposed. And the motion is passed. Okay, we have received the final CARES Act payment, the $104,000, $104,287.44. That's for coronavirus relief, and that payment came in on October the 9th. And this payment resulted from the passage of House Bill 614, which formerly was known as Senate Bill 357. And that House bill distributed the remaining $650 million in Ohio CARES Act funds. And for this payment to local jurisdictions, it was based on population. You'll recall that the earlier 2 payments from the first bill were based on the local government formula. So with our 2,894 residents in the unincorporated area, that gave us the 104,000 and change. This is one more reason why filling out your census form is such an important item, because funds such as this 104,000 that are based on population, and that is only based on the census numbers. So far we have now received, and that was the final payment, we've now received a total of $143,408.36 in these three payments. And with the new House Bill 614, the dates have changed. The unappropriated funds will be returned to the county on November 20th. Anything that we might purchase using the funds must be received and installed by December 31st. And unused funds will be returned to the state by February 1st of next year. There is ongoing reporting requirements with the CARES Act funds, and I have submitted our first report to the Ohio Office of Budget and Management. I did that on October 7th. That took us through the period of September 30th. So the report reflected that we had received two payments totaling $39,120.92 and reported no expenditures. Now, following up on our discussion of CARES Act at the October 1st special meeting, Mr. Raymer and I met with Larry Burton of Audio Excellence Consulting on October 5th to review his earlier audiovisual proposal, and also then discuss with him revising his proposal to become more of a video teleconferencing system. And subsequent to our meeting, Mr. Burton contacted me to inform us that he did not feel qualified to submit a proposal for a video teleconference system. And I believe Mr. Raymer may talk about that further when we get to his report. At the September meeting, I reported to you that the Ohio Deferred Compensation Program has recently launched a post-tax option. We currently have 3 employees who take advantage of pre-tax deferred compensation payments. But after we discussed the post-tax Roth 457 program that they've started, you asked me at the September meeting that I survey the township's employees to determine if there was any interest in the post-tax option. 5 employees have expressed an interest, and I believe that in some cases they weren't even aware that we had a pre-tax option. Now, employers can voluntarily offer the new post-tax Roth 57 option to the employees by executing a new employer adoption agreement. And so since 5 people have indicated an interest in the post-tax option, I would recommend that the trustees pass a resolution. And if you decide to do that, that will be 2020-26. And I would recommend that you pass that resolution authorizing me to execute the appropriate documents with the Ohio Deferred Compensation Program, and then offer this option to our employees. Would someone like to introduce Resolution 2020-26?
I'll introduce Resolution 2020-26, a resolution to authorize Mark Heaston to work with the Ohio Deferred Compensation for, what was the rest of it?
For post-tax Roth 457 option.
Post-tax Roth 457 option. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will second that.
Thank you. Any discussion of the resolution?
I appreciate you looking into it and asking the employees if they're interested in it, especially if not many knew about the pre-tax. That will benefit them.
There seemed to be some excitement about this. So I'm glad that we will be able to offer this, and it costs us nothing. It's just a payment that I make after every payroll that I process. And other than that, it's nothing that we have to do. So if there's no further discussion of Resolution 2020-26, I will call the roll. Mrs. Reed.
Yes.
Mr. Stubbs,
Yes.
Mr. Raymond.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you very much. Last month you passed a resolution concerning the tax amounts for next year. And so I did submit to County Auditor Carl Keith the resolution that you approved, and that accepts the amounts and rates as determined by the County Budget Commission and authorizes the necessary tax levies for 2021. So that is done. Now, since last month's regular meeting, I've attended several online webinars or virtual meetings. I attended the Montgomery County Township Association Fiscal Officers virtual meeting on September 15th, and I attended 3 Ohio Township Association webinars, all related to the CARES Act. On September 18th, I attended one on the uses of CARES Act funding. On September 25th, on the subgranting of CARES Act funding, and on October 1st on the auditing of CARES Act funding. So we're getting great information out of the Ohio Township Association on this CARES Act issue. And without that, I'm not sure where I would be. So good use of our payment that we send up to them. As I reported last month was going to happen, First National Bank was here at the Township Hall on October 7th to test their ability to communicate with their core from our building. Back on October 15th of 2018, the trustees approved the use of the Township Hall meeting room by the bank to run their operations in the event of a disaster at the bank. The test on October 7th was a requirement of the bank's regulators and was completely successful. Lori Rohrbach, Jeremy Holbrook, Scott Hamilton, and I met with Michelle Crockett of Vernon and Flower Insurance Company on October 1st to discuss the upcoming health insurance renewals for 2021. And we should have those rates through Medical Mutual sometime later this month. Depending on what the increase is, there will be a decision made at that time whether we will source other options for health insurance for the township employees. The 2020 health insurance increase was 19.9%. And who knows what next year's will be? My personal guess is it'll be less than that significantly. We'll see. But the good news is there will be no rate increase for 2021 from either Delta Dental or our Vision Service plan. Both companies are holding their current rates for 2021. As all of you are aware, we have received 3, and actually now we're up to 4 public records requests within the last week. The first one requested copies of all emails from you 3 where any of you were either the sender or the recipient, including being a carbon copy recipient of an email from August 1st to October 8th. Also requested copies of all videos from all trustees, zoning commission, and BZA meetings from July 1st through October 8th. A second request was then submitted for all emails where I was included as a recipient when any of you 3 trustees were either the sender or a recipient, again, including where any of you might have been a carbon copy recipient. The third and fourth request were both for copies of the October 10th special meeting, special trustees meeting, October 10th one, if I didn't say it correctly the first time, and that was the meeting on the JED. So I have already responded to the second request for my personal emails. My response totaled 180 pages, representing 109 unique emails. And each of you, as quickly as you can, need to provide me with your emails so that I can respond to that portion of the initial public records request. And Haley is working to copy the meeting videos. Well, I'm sorry, she has done some of that already so that I can respond to that request. Now, before I move on to an issue related to the public records request, I do want to make note of the fact that Lori is working to set up a township YouTube channel, which will have a link to all of our, from our township website, that will then allow people to go in directly and watch the videos of all the WebEx trustees meetings. And that would go back all the way to April of this year. You approved that at an earlier trustees meeting. So once that is completed, we will be able to refer township residents or anyone who wants to get a copy of a recording from a township trustee meeting. We can refer them to the YouTube channel. Now, there's a little bit of an issue about the responses to the public records request. And we discovered a discrepancy between the official public records policy that the township has against the most recent zoning fee schedule that you approved back in August. And so we need to resolve that discrepancy tonight so that I can advise those who are receiving copies of either documents or recordings of the meetings of the appropriate charge. Back in 2008, on resolution number 22, you approved the public records policy, or the trustees at that time approved the public records policy for German Township. And in that document, there is a charge for the receipt of public records. And the charge for paper copies, less than 50 pages was no charge. More than 50 pages was 5 cents per page. And then for digital copies, it was $5 per CD if mailed, or $2 if not mailed. Now, back in 2008, I don't think anyone thought about thumb drives, flash drives, whatever you want to call them, but that's what we're using rather than a CD to respond to these public records requests. Now, in August, when you approved the new zoning fee schedule, there was also a section in there for copies. And you approved paper copies over 5 would be 25 cents each, and an audio or video file would be $25. And it doesn't say whether it's each or in total. We need to, in my opinion, amend the resolution from August, which was number 2020.19, to eliminate the 25-cent charge for paper copies over 5 and the $25 charge for audio video copies from the township's zoning fee schedule. And we can do it one of two ways. We can just strike those 2 lines, or we could replace those numbers with language that would refer someone back to the township's public records policy. But we do not want, at least tonight, to change the public records policy, even though it doesn't specifically address thumb drives, flash drives, or whatever you want to call them. So it would be my recommendation that you approve as resolution 2020-27, either the removal of those fees in total or changing the numbers to the language per the township's public records policy. And with that, I'll open up for discussion and perhaps introduction of resolution 2020-27.
That was definitely an oversight because we can't charge that much for a copy ever. You can't charge more than the paper cost, basically, per Ohio law. So I'm not sure how we missed that one, but I'm fine with having it so it goes with the standard township policy.
Mr. Houston, if you don't mind, I just have a question. I just want to make sure I heard it right. So currently from 2008, I believe it was, paper copies above 50 copies were 5 cents per page. Was that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I wrote that down right. So that's reflected back to 2008, not what was passed in August.
That is correct.
So
And that
just
2008 policy deals with the whole township, not just the zoning department.
okay. And the one that we just passed in August really mainly focused on the digital version of it.
The digital version, audio, video was $25, and the paper copies were 25 cents each after the first 5.
Okay.
Both of those would be considered unreasonable by Ohio law. So you can't charge more than the copy of the disc or the flash drive. That's what or the sheet of paper. That's the point. You can't charge for your time. You can't charge for anything else, really. It just has to be a cost of the product itself. So 5 cents is, I believe, standard. Anywhere from 4 to 6 cents is standard for Ohio. I believe for governments like this.
I think, Mr. Heaston, there's also in the fee schedule, there's a zoning text fee, and I think there's also a zoning text fee in the resolution that you're speaking about on the public records request. So I think whenever we make this resolution, we just need to make sure that any of those things are consistent, not just the audio, visual, and the prints.
That's an excellent point, Mr. Kramer.
And I don't recall them being disconnected, but they may be. So regardless, I'm happy to introduce the resolution. It seems like a pretty simple thing to introduce, but I just want to make sure however it's worded in this resolution, we make it however it's needed to make this alleviated.
Can I interject about the zoning fee schedule specifically?
Please,
Sure.
So the zoning fee schedule that was passed a couple of months ago, some of those charges were reflective from the fee schedule from 2003. And it looks like in 2003, the video copies was at $25. And the paper copies over 5 was also at 25 cents each. So I kept those specific numbers the same. Not that that makes a difference, but I just wanted to let you guys know.
Off the top of my head, I'm remembering the 25 cents may have been color copies. So that would be different.
Okay.
If we're printing out page and page of pictures, that would actually have a larger cost than just text or whatever.
Correct. Yeah. And like Mr. Houston stated, we are not using discs to send these out. We're actually using the USB thumb drives now.
So
we just received a chat entry from, I believe this is Lori Rohrback, and she's telling us that the zoning manuals back in the cost of the zoning manuals was $25 because that's what it cost at Office Depot to have the copies made.
Okay.
And that would be the zoning text copies, I believe is what she's referring to. If she wants to speak, she can certainly unmute herself to do so.
So is the suggestion color copies be specified, or we change it to 5 cents for everything?
Well, and then can I ask a question too? So the suggestion right now is that we wouldn't charge for digital for the flash drives, but we would charge for a paper version. Is that right? Because if we're passing along the cost of paper, I feel like we should probably pass along the cost of the thumb drive as well. But just that way they stay in line with one another. I know a thumb drive doesn't cost very much, but neither does one sheet, 5 cents is one sheet of paper. Is that consistent?
Mrs. Sewell just bought a handful of thumb drives over the weekend. And I believe correct me if I'm wrong, Haley, but I think it was less than $5 each one.
Yeah, it was for something, but they were on sale. So the price of those does vary. It just depends on if I can catch a sale. I did buy several more than what we need at this time because they were on sale. But again, the prices are going to vary each time I have to purchase them because the cost of things never goes down. So if I can get lucky and get it on a sale, that's great.
Can we set just the cost of the flash drive? So we don't set a dollar amount, whatever the flash drive costs, we just pass maybe a receipt with it, pass that cost on to the person requesting.
And since we have 3 requests for recordings of the meetings, we can do that. It could be $5, which would be inconsistent with what we have in the 2008 for a CD. That would probably get us as close as where we are. And that would not require us, I don't think tonight anyway, to work on changing the records, the public records policy. But the other thing I will offer to each of the people who have requested copies of the meetings, recordings, is they're welcome to come in to the office here at the Township Hall and take it off the flash drive, put it onto their computer, and we get the flash drive back. And at that case, I wouldn't charge anything.
I'm not comfortable doing that. Not because I don't want to, but because I don't know what type of viruses or things that they have on their PC.
Could that infect an empty flash drive once we delete all the files on it?
Well, if we take it, download it from our computer and put it on their computer can infect that drive. And then if we stick it back into our computers, it can infect our computers.
So if we put it on a flash drive and they put it in their computer and
now,
and then everything is wiped off of the flash drive before they hand it back to us, it could still have a virus?
Yeah. Now, what I would be comfortable with doing is if they brought a stick in that was still in the original packaging.
And this hopefully is a temporary situation, because as soon as we get these up on the website through the YouTube channel, I don't think anyone would have to ask for a copy of a recording.
Right.
However you all would like to do it. But before I turn over the recordings that Haley has copied at this point on the flash drive, I need to know what, if anything, I'm going to charge for these. And $25 is not something we can charge. It's way above the actual cost that we're incurring. And as Mr. Stubbs has correctly pointed out, we are not allowed to charge anything more than the actual out-of-pocket costs that the township incurs for a public records request. Now, we have a resolution that was introduced by Mr. Raymert. Technically, we probably shouldn't even be discussing this without a second. So could I have a second to the resolution just to formalize it? And then we can have discussion and we can modify or even turn down the resolution. But at least we can officially discuss it then.
I'll second.
Thank you.
What was that resolution number?
2020-27.
Thank you.
I mean, I agree with Mr. Stubbs, just for lots of reasons. Can we just put the cost of the medium, and leave it at that? That'll keep us from, it also ties us to understand that it's for the cost of the medium, so we don't have any of these concerns going forward.
I mean, if they need a huge flash drive for all the records they request, or they can just get the cheap, with little memory, there's a difference in the cost there. So I think if we could leave it open-ended, so whatever the cost of the flash drive is required for the request, I feel would feel the most comfortable with.
The only other thing I'd mention, if it's fair, is, we're not messing with the other resolution right now, but just calling out on the zoning fee schedule that, 5 cents for black and whites and 25 cents for color copies, because I'm sure Haley will have to deal with color copies on several documents.
Correct.
If we put a specific amount in, anytime that we might change the public records request policy, we would then have to make sure and go back and change the zoning fee schedule at the same time.
Okay, so your suggestion is referencing the public records request schedule.
That would be
But
my
is that anything anybody can access? I mean, I guess they can request it, but I've never seen that. I don't know if that's something that gets annually reviewed. Sounds like updated in 2008. So
I'm not sure whether it's annually reviewed or not. That would be probably something Mr. Stubbs might know, but I know it hasn't been updated since '08.
I believe it's as necessary, and we would have to have if my memory serves correct, you have to have a special records retention, open that meeting during our public meeting, do the records retention issues, and then close that part, and then go back to the regular meeting. And I believe it has to be advertised ahead of time as well.
I'm not suggesting that you change the public records policy, and that's what we're talking about, not records retention, but public records policy. What's involved in giving out public records?
Giving out public records, I don't think, I don't know what to say to that one. I think it's just, if it's requested, we give it out.
Yeah.
I'm fine with just referencing that if you guys are okay with that. So we just reference the public records request policy fee schedule that's included in it for, I guess, the 3 items that were on the zoning fee schedule that are included in the public records request fee schedule, which is the zoning text, the copies, and the audio recordings. Those 3 items, just say.
What about the zoning map? Would that be considered, or would that be specific to my office?
I don't recall seeing it, but
I think that was specific.
But again, I would assume, to Mr. Stubbs' point, it can't exceed whatever the cost is to produce that. So I don't know if that's consistent, or we need to amend that now, Haley, as well.
Yeah, at the bottom, I'm looking at the fee schedule here now. At the very bottom of it, let's see, we've got the zoning text copies, zoning map, copies in general, which is, paper and or audio video.
I would suggest just going forward with what Mr. Heaston has suggested for tonight. And if there's other issues that need to be taken care of, we can do that at the next meeting.
So we have a resolution, Mr. Stubbs, that you've introduced, Mrs. Rita seconded, to eliminate the dollar cost for copies, paper, and audio video on the zoning fee schedule, replacing it with language that would reference it back to the public records policy. That would allow us to address and satisfy the public records requests that we've received now, 3 different ones for copies of meeting recordings. And by the way, in the chat room, Mrs. Rohrback has commented several times with about 6 exclamation points. She agrees with you. We don't want to use a flash drive a second time.
Mr. Houston, I don't think I'm the one who made the resolution. I believe that was, and then Mr.
Did I say it was? Did I say you, Mrs. I apologize. Mr. Raymertz introduced the resolution. Mr. Stubbs seconded.
Yes. Okay.
Sorry. Are we ready to vote? or any further discussion? All right.
Are we going to put something on here that if, and this might have to be addressed in another meeting, are we going to put something on here that references if they bring their own medium in, like flash drive in the original packaging, that there would be no charge?
We could do that. Would Mr. Raymond and Mr. Stubbs be willing to add that to the resolution?
Yes, Chief.
I wouldn't do that. Viruses they have on their equipment that you're now putting into your equipment. That is all.
Well, that's why I was saying in the original packaging, like untampered with type of thing.
I just would.
Mr. Raymond, I think you went mute. Were you starting to say something?
I'm sorry. I thought Chief was also speaking, so I went mute again. But I was just going to say I don't think any of these costs will be significant. I mean, $5 for a records request on a thumb drive that can hold 15 gigs is pretty substantial. So I mean, I can't imagine that being too exorbitant. Or just passing on the actual cost. And Haley, I totally agree with your point, but I guess I would just have a little bit of fear that somebody could tamper or do something. I mean, I've got it where my computer doesn't even accept thumb drives anymore, just because the concern of viruses and stuff like that with the security I use. So I just don't think that's something we should allow. Just charge the $5 or whatever the cost is, put it on there and pass it on, let them hold it and have it.
Fair enough.
I agree with Tyler on this. Let's just make them buy it. It's not a big deal. It's a records request. So $5 is nothing. So, and it's for the safety of our computers here at the township.
Absolutely.
If there's no further discussion, I will call the roll. Mrs. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Stubbs?
Yes.
And Mr. Raymond?
Yes.
Thank you very much. My final item, I'm not going to ask you to deal with at this point in the meeting because I believe that Mr. Holbrook is going to also have an excess item, a piece of equipment that he wants you to declare as excess. But let me at least introduce what I'm going to ask you to include in the resolution when you do his, so that we don't have to do two excess resolutions tonight. Shortly after I started here as fiscal officer, Lori and Jeremy installed a new printer in my office. And all the hardware that I use, both the laptop as well as the printer, are provided to the township by the Ohio Auditor of State under our UAN contract. And since that time, the old printer has been sitting in the meeting room, and I kind of just forgot about it. Well, I've offered the printer to Jeremy, Lori, and Haley to see whether any of them could use it in their office. And Haley has decided that she can use it. It's an upgrade from what she currently has. So when we do the excess resolution for Mr. Holbrook, I'm going to add her copier to that, and what I'm going to ask is for that one, allow us to donate her printer to a local nonprofit. And although we don't necessarily need to say who it's going to be, my thinking is either perhaps the Veterans Memorial Museum or the Historical Society might have a need for a new printer or an additional printer. So I will ask you to do that later in the meeting. And with that in mind, I am done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Heaston. I believe it is Chief Ganzik.
Thank you. Sorry, Haley. I just don't trust any. So,
No worries. That's okay.
My report, the police cruiser, the 19 is finally now marked and equipped, and it is in service. You can disregard point number 2 that was on last month's. I neglected to delete it out. And the only other item I have currently is an action item. I recommend the Board of Trustees hire Shauna Lee Ann Close to the position of part-time police clerk, effective November 1st, 2020, and subject to a 12-month probationary period, starting with a pay of $17 per hour. Shauna scored highest of all applicants on the written test and interview. She is a resident of German Township, and she has already donated time to begin learning all facets of this position.
I would like to introduce Resolution 2020-28. Is that correct, Mr. Heaston?
That's correct. 2020-20.
2020-28, a resolution to hire Shauna Leanne Close to the position of part-time police clerk effective 1 November 2020 to serve a 1-year probation period with the starting pay of $17 an hour.
And I will second.
Any discussion of the resolution?
When we interviewed the candidates, while we had several quality ones, she stood out. And I think she will do a fantastic job for German Township. So I'm looking forward to having her here for many years to come.
If there's no other discussion, I will call the roll on Resolution 2020-28, and we'll start with Mrs. Reed.
Yes.
Mr. Stubbs.
Yes.
And Mr. Raymert.
Yes.
Resolution 2020-28 is adopted.
Thank you very much, and that concludes.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Holbrook.
I'll try to keep this as quick as possible. On my report this evening, like Mr. Heaston said, I have a couple pieces of equipment I'd like the board to declare as excess. The first one, well, both of these items were actually donated by the police department. They were pieces of equipment that Scott Hamilton and I had found alongside the road, surprisingly. And we picked them up and they were entered into evidence, and apparently the police department tried to find the proper owners. I think they had them in their possession for well over a year, and finally got a court order to release them to the police department, and the police department released them to the road department. Both these pieces of equipment are attachments for a Bobcat skid steer, which the township does not own. The first item is a Bobcat brand 36-inch wide pallet forks, basically kind of like a forklift front end for a skid steer. Obviously, not having a skid steer, we have no use for this equipment. So I would like to declare that excess to be sold on Gov Deals. And the second one is a 38-inch Bobcat brand rototiller attachment. Once again, we do not own a Bobcat, so we would have no need for that. But Jackson Township does indeed own a skid steer, and we have routinely borrowed items from Jackson Township, probably more than they've ever borrowed anything from us, to be quite frank. Quite frequently, we borrow their hot box, which keeps asphalt warm while you're doing hand patching. And also, they have a bucket truck that we have borrowed on several occasions. So my recommendation is to donate, do a lateral transfer for that attachment and actually give that to Jackson Township to use. And obviously, we would be able to borrow that with the appropriate Bobcat skid steer to operate it if we ever needed it in the future. So along with those two items, I think Mr. Heaston had mentioned that he would like to declare, I guess it's Haley's printer as excess also. So I think we could do all that as one resolution. I think that would be 29.
That would be Resolution 2020-29, and the printer in question is an HP LaserJet P2035N.
I will make resolution 2020-29 to declare excess the 2 Bobcat pieces and the printer, and for one of them to be donated to Jackson Township and for the printer to go to a nonprofit organization.
And
the
the last
third
item to
item
go to
would be
Gov Deals.
sold.
I'm sorry, Jeremy, what was that?
And the last item to be auctioned on Gov Deals.
Okay, and the final item to be auctioned on Gov Deals, sorry.
Is there a second to Resolution 2020-29?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
It's if Jackson Township can use the rototiller and potentially loan it back to us at some point with the Bobcat, that's definitely beneficial to both of us. So, especially since there was no cost to the township originally, absolutely.
Correct.
If there's no further discussion, I will call the roll. Mrs. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Stubbs,
Yes.
and Mr. Raymond.
Yes.
Resolution 2020-29 is adopted.
Thank you all very much. The second item on my agenda is at the last meeting that I attended, the board asked me to look into getting a quote for plumbing upgrades to the township to include touchless toilets, touchless urinal, and touchless faucets for both the men's and women's restroom. I contacted Dill's Plumbing, and they provided a estimate to make those changes as you requested. I did get those out kind of late to you. I hope you got that email with that attachment. The total cost for those items that I just mentioned was $4,481, and that included new toilets, new urinals, and new fixtures for the sinks. So the actual sink portion would stay the same, and it would just be the new fixture that would be handleless. It would all be sensor, non-touch. So I know Mr. Dill. He is actually a Valley View graduate, and I've seen his work. He does fantastic work. He is licensed, so I'll leave that up to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Holbrook, for getting that gathered. I don't know if we want to discuss it now, or I do have, as Mr. Heason said, some information on the conferencing system. We can discuss that together as a CARES part, or we can do that now or later. I'm fine with whatever.
I just have a quick question for you, Mr. Holbrook. I did look over that, but just briefly, just to see what the total amount was. Did that include, since it's not plumbing, probably not, but did it include any of like soap dispensers being automatic or paper towel dispensers or anything like that?
No, it did not. I actually thought of that, and I thought that that would probably be better if we installed that.
Okay.
More of a cost savings than anything, because now that we are aware that we can use any residual money for the police department, I can't see giving that away in labor for something that we can handle. I understood the board's concerned with the plumbing and getting into the walls and doing all that kind of thing in the drain and waste, but with the simple things like automated soap dispensers or automated towel dispensers, we're going to be the ones ordering the replacement supplies for those. So we probably would be better off getting those through our local supplier. That way we know we always will be able to get the materials to reload both the soap and the paper towels. So that was the reason that those were not included in that bid.
Okay, and since you're on, and I might be on the same boat with Mr. Raymer to jumping ahead, I got to thinking about different things, and I'm not sure if this is something you can install or feel comfortable installing, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but I wanted to ask you since you're on. They have light switches that automatically come on, when you would enter that room, which would hopefully be a cost savings, so we could install those in the bathrooms maybe, or even in the meeting hall. Is that something if we decide later on to have installed, that you feel comfortable installing, or have you ever installed them before?
Yes, actually the men's restroom has one currently.
No,
So
I don't frequent there, so I didn't know that.
yeah, I would wonder why you did know if you did. So, but yeah, I can install one of those in the women's restroom for, I mean, those switches are very low cost, probably less than $25. So, yeah, if we want to do that and, charge the cost of that back to the CARES Act, that would be totally fine.
Okay.
I mean, you're only talking probably 15, 20 minutes to do it, maybe.
Okay, perfect. I just didn't want to ask you to do something you didn't feel comfortable with, so I wanted to make sure your comfort level with that first.
No, I appreciate it.
Okay, all right. Thank you. That's all that I have.
I don't know. Do you guys want me to go ahead and finish my report and then we'll come back to that under Tyler's, or how do you want to do that?
I think it makes sense.
Okay. The only other things under other, just to kind of keep you up to date on what we've been up to, we did do a couple loads of patching material, where we did borrow Jackson Township's heated asphalt box to do some hand patching, just try to get all the little edge bruising and potholes filled in before winter. We did do some berming along some of the roadways where the shoulder gravel was kind of worn away. Once again, kind of getting ready for winter. And we're just starting up right now, revving up to start trimming all the trees along the township maintained roadways. So like I said, just kind of more or less just kind of keeping you up to date of what we've been doing. And with that, that is all I have on my report.
Thank you, Mr. Holbrook. And Mrs. Sewell.
All right, I don't have much on my report tonight. Just an update on the previous cases. On 9/22, the BZA moved to approve the conditional use for the Abundant Life Tabernacle School Building. So I have been in the process of getting all of that taken care of with Pastor Setzer. On the 1st of October, the Board of Trustees moved to deny the case 2020-35ZC. That was the EB Road Hill barn case. Some permits that I have done over the last month. There was a few fence on Jamaica, garage on 725, residential addition on 725, a shed on Lower Miamisburg, and a temporary tent permit on Route 4. The next zoning commission meeting will be on the 1st of December at 7 p.m. Due to the coronavirus and everything forever changing, the location is to be determined at this time. We don't know what level we're going to be at, if we're going to be able to be in person or if it will be completely virtual. So I will keep everybody updated as soon as I know that. For anybody listening, please make sure you check the general German Township Facebook page. All of those meetings get updated on there. And also they get posted here at the township on the window at the township hall. I don't know if I need to request this, if it needs to be a resolution or how to handle this, but I did want to bring up changing the web host of our township webpage to GoDaddy. It is something that Lori Warbach found. I have played around with it. It does seem very user-friendly. There is a slight price increase from our current host, but again, it's very user-friendly. It'll save money on the hours that I'll have to spend, so it'll be a savings on payroll. It seems to be a higher quality, and I will be able to list more information on there than on our current page. In addition, let's see. Well, I'll go ahead and take care of that first. I don't know if that needs to be like a resolution, if we need to discuss it more. I'm hoping, if you guys agree with it, to have that up and going here in December or at the latest the first of the year.
Haley, just out of curiosity, do you know about what the price difference is?
I believe it was like $5 more monthly. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. No, I just want to make sure it's not going up $150 a month or something. I mean,
No, it was just a slight price increase from what we are currently paying. Lori, if she's still on here, she might know better specifically.
Yeah,
We
currently you're paying $9.95, and I think it goes up to $11.95. So it's very minimal for as easy as it's going to be to use.
thank you.
I don't think you need to do this as a resolution, even though there is a small dollar impact. I think it's well within the budgets that have been approved. So I think we could do it by motion.
I'll make a motion to allow us to move from our current web host, I think is Tripod, to GoDaddy with a small incremental de minimis additional monthly fee.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion of the motion?
I
All in
think it'll get
favor?
us more up to. I think it'll get us more up to date. Our website is definitely outdated, so hopefully this will help.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you guys so much. I do think that it'll be a lot more user-friendly to our citizens also. And then the last, that I did add one more thing to my list tonight. I do not know if we need to approve this or not, but I would also like to start putting the Board of Zoning Appeals and the Zoning Commission minutes and or videos on the webpage also. I've had several questions about that, and I don't see why we should not list those just like we list the trustees.
I agree. I'm supportive to doing that. I think it's transparent, and I think it's consistent with the other way we do our records, or will in the future.
I agree with Mr. Raymer. I think that they should be posted. I don't know, it could previously have been maybe some storage issue or whatnot, but now maybe with this updated GoDaddy website software, it'll hopefully help alleviate any of that we had before. So I am all for putting and being as transparent as we can, putting things out there to our citizens.
Let's do that via a motion.
Sure, I'll introduce a motion, or I'd make a motion to go ahead and post our zoning meetings, commission, BZA minutes, and audio and video recordings on the website that we will be hosting.
I will second that.
Any discussion of the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you guys so much.
The motion passes.
Thank you guys so much. That'll also help with the records requests through my office as well. And that is all I have tonight.
All right, I am going to make my report very short and sweet because unfortunately we still have not had a senior oversight meeting or a fire oversight meeting. We were really hoping to have actually the fire oversight and the senior oversight, I believe tomorrow and then Thursday. Schedules just did not work out. So now they're planning for, I believe it's next Wednesday, I think it's next Wednesday at 10 a.m. That is not set in stone. We're still asking to make sure that time and date works for people, but hopefully by the next meeting, I will have a report for you on the Senior Citizen Center as well as the fire oversight. So, and I have some things for the CARES Act, but I will wait till Mr. Raymert's report on that. So that is all I have this evening. Mr. Stubbs?
Thank you. Just a few things, keep it brief. Again, it's been a long meeting already. Cemetery, we have no issues in the past month. We're about 50% of the yearly spending, but we're also at 50% above the yearly revenue, and it's down with the COVID situation. So we're right where we want to be financially, just not where we expected to be a year ago. Second, pool, we met for our budget oversight. It's a yearly battle with the administrative fees. So I would ask that you, Mrs. Reed, take into consideration that the admin fees for your oversights, especially senior center, should be down, if anything, as they've not been open this year. So please keep that in mind when you have that discussion. Next, this is more of a question for Chief. Maybe I should have asked during his report. Haven't had a chance to bring up my swamp on Boomershine lately, but just for good measure, it's back. And the Metro Park has put 2 trail crossings on Boomershine Road, a road that is 55 miles per hour with no signage. So if Chief Antic is still on here, I'm wondering, definitely for the safety of people crossing the street as well as motorists, where they've put two trail crossings. Is there an issue with that, or I mean, it's kind of hidden in both places, just coming out of the woods and crossing where you don't expect them. One's near a stop sign, the other's not. So do you see any issues with that?
Well, we haven't had any issues in years gone.
We lost you for a second, Chief.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I had a problem with my phone all of a sudden. I think it's something we need to keep an eye on, definitely. But I don't know of any problems that have been created thus far. So I think it's something that we just need to be aware of and monitor.
Okay, I'm assuming as it becomes more popular, there may be more people out there. I'm just concerned for the hikers as well as the drivers, that someone pop out not expecting a car at 55 miles an hour. So
Right.
definitely something we could keep an eye on. And Metro Park will definitely be required for signage. We're not going to be responsible for that when they're crossing our road. And I, to my knowledge, never let any of us know. And they did it in 2 different locations. Other than that, that's all for the Metro Park Trailhead. I attended the Jackson Township meeting last night, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stubbs. Mr. Raymer?
Sure. I'll try to do my best to keep it as brief as both of you. Thank you. Quickly, tomorrow I will be attending my first parks meeting. So I want to give you guys the opportunity. Obviously, I haven't attended any of these meetings in the past. I would think they're looking to get the budget approved for the 2021 year. So if you guys have any input or anything that you want me to be aware of, just as you mentioned, Mr. Stubbs, on admin fees for other things, do you guys have any comments or any suggestions or anything I should look out for?
They don't put admin fees on the park because there's not enough money. So as far as I know, there's nothing to watch out for. The park is pretty straightforward just because of the low number of funding.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I completely agree with Mr. Stubbs. There is no admin fee. I was on the park for maybe 2 years, for a while. They were looking at my last meeting, and it has been since probably November-ish since we've had a meeting that I attended. So it's been almost a year. They were looking at maybe possibly paving, or they had, the group got together a list of their top 5 things that they wanted to discuss and really work towards over the year. Now, COVID happened shortly after that, so I'm not sure where they were at on that, but they're a great group. They volunteer a lot of time. They usually do the Santa. I don't know what'll happen this year, but they do bring Santa in December, and so I think you'll enjoy that board.
I appreciate that. Along the same lines on budget, I know Mr. Heaston, when we had talked back when I was onboarding, you had mentioned starting the budget process earlier. So I just wanted to touch base on that and see if we had a timeline kind of on that, knowing that we won't have another meeting for quite a while now.
I have not given the budget much thought at this point, other than we have the estimate of the revenues from the county for each of our funds. So we at least have a place where we can start. But the budgeting process is still a little fuzzy in my mind, not having been through it before here at the township.
Okay.
Can I jump in? Can I jump in for a second? So what happens is when Mr. Hingston gets the budget numbers on how much we can expect, he gives those out to the department heads. The department heads and departments work on their own budget, and then they submit them back to him. He kind of checks over the numbers because we won't know what the carryover is, which is included in our budget, until further into December. Usually in December, then we give our budget. Once we have all those numbers, we give them to the trustees, and then the trustees start looking through them. They meet with their department, respective departments, kind of go over that budget, look at that. And then the formal budgets are given to the trustees formally in January.
Okay.
I've already have my draft started because there are things that, like the crime lab has already given us their numbers for next year. So that's already gone into my draft. But yeah, it's kind of like each department, once we get the numbers from Mr. Heaston, then we start working on that. And then we start that process of we give it to you guys to look at. He looks at it, makes sure the numbers are looking good. So it's a joint thing until we submit it.
Thank you much, Lori, for the perspective. Two last things. I think one of them will go quickly and one may not. The JED, I just want to mention on this call, I know we had the special meeting. I just want to make sure for our regular attendees, they're aware that we did have a special meeting on the JED. There was a lot of great discussion on that. I think there's a lot of things to continue to discuss and iron out with that. I just want to make that noted in the meeting minutes here that we are continuing progress on those discussions, yet to be determined where it shakes out. I'll pause there just to make sure no one else has any comments or wants to correct anything I've said, and then I'll move on to the last one.
I believe, Mr. Raymer, that at our JED meeting on the 10th, there was some discussion about setting up a follow-up JED meeting, and we said that we were going to set that date and time at this meeting. So hopefully we can do that so that we can continue that discussion forward. We can notify the other entities that are involved in the JED and hopefully have another good conversation.
Sure. Sorry, that must have been my feedback. Yeah, I think I've got quite a bit of availability. My schedule is pretty open after, obviously, 4:30, my normal day job. But apart from that, I don't have anything substantial holding me up right now.
Okay. Same time, 4:30 right now, sports are slowing down for me. So for the time being, until we start indoor soccer. So I would agree with that 4:30 time. I can meet anytime after 4:30, Monday through Friday, for the most part.
Can we set this up for the 1st of November sometime? First week, second week of November?
Absolutely. Is there a day in there? Obviously, there's some days. Election day is probably not a good one for many people to attend, but within those 2 weeks, we already have our regular township meeting, I believe, on the 9th when I look at my calendar. Is there other days that week or those first 2 weeks, like Mr. Stubbs said, that work better for others?
I think that Monday the second worked well for me. Does it look good for you guys?
I am available Monday, November 2nd. Mr. Stubbs, would you be available? I would think it would have to be early enough because I know Germantown has a meeting that Monday, but not until 7. So as long as we would schedule it early enough, that would probably work. Mr. Stubbs, does the November 2nd work for you?
I wouldn't want to conflict with the city meeting if possible, so maybe go to that Wednesday if possible.
I agree. I'm good with that. Wednesday looks good for me.
Wednesday the 4th.
Hey guys, I'm actually in my office tonight. Would you like me to go look at the calendar in the trustee or in the township hall?
Yeah, to see if anything conflicts. Yeah, hopefully we can meet in person then. That would be.
Give
that
me
would be
just a
helpful.
second.
Okay.
And while Mrs. Sewell's checking the calendar for the room, I'm also available on Wednesday, the 4th.
What time would we be thinking for Wednesday the 4th?
6 or 7.
Yeah, I think 6 is good for me. I would prefer a little bit earlier.
Okay.
6 o'clock.
Do we want to give any backup day in case the other representatives cannot attend?
Let's do it the next week.
So just say
Next
that.
Wednesday, go a week
the
ahead.
I can do that Thursday or a week ahead, either one.
Either way.
This is the only thing, and I know we want to do it right, but if this thing carries out, and as Mr. Richard mentioned tonight, May, he's looking at getting things moving. I just want to be aware that time is ticking away.
So maybe not move it a week in case maybe Wednesdays are a bad day for people. Maybe just move it either November 4th or November 5th.
That's fine.
Does that sound good? Okay.
So let's see. Tuesday the 3rd is election day. Wednesday the 4th, it looks like there is a CERT class scheduled for 6 p.m.
So can't do that here.
So we've got the Monday the 2nd, Thursday the 5th, and Friday the 6th.
The CERT class is canceled. I just didn't cross it off. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I will cross that off.
Thank you.
Let's go with Wednesday or Thursday, 6 o'clock, whatever the other entities can do.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Final topic, CARES Act. I mean, I think there's several things for people to discuss on this. Mr. Heason, obviously interject. You were at the meeting and know the feedback that Mr. Burton provided to us. Appreciate him meeting with us and explaining, detailed why the quote came out what it was. Just to remind you guys, it was almost $14,000 for the conferencing system and almost $6,000 for the projection system. And when we met, we discussed it. He said what the key drivers behind that was the public address system internally in that room makes everything so much more difficult because you need an audio mixer and all these things to cancel out noise from one microphone to the next and the speakers. And a lot of the complication came from that. And that's where the expense was driven by. The other thing that drove the expense was he had quoted a high definition pan camera that can get zoom in on different seats within the township room. What I had told him is I thought those were all great thoughts and ideas, but just from budgetary purposes, we thought we might be able to do something a little less expensive. My experience was with conferencing systems where you would just have basically what they call like a starfish. It sits in the middle of the room. You can dial into WebEx meetings and have speakers sitting around the room, and they all interact with that starfish. And then we could have a large screen HD television on one of the walls be the monitor to see anyone on the WebEx. He agreed that that would be a much simpler and a much less expensive option, although he admitted that that wasn't his expertise. His was more in the public address arena rather than audio conferencing arena. And he said he was going to check with an expert that he knew. But then he circled back with Mr. Heason and said that he deferred going forward just because that wasn't his area of expertise. I did take Mr. Heason's information he provided from Spectrum and called them. They said that they are happy to quote us an audio conferencing system like that where we would use our landline or a landline to be able to call into WebEx meetings. we would probably also need a cheaper camera, which Mr. Burton explained to us. For $250, you can get any WebEx type camera and stick it up on the wall. It just won't be able to pan, tilt, zoom, all that kind of stuff. But it'd be, several $1,000s cheaper. And then we would still need like a HD monitor television to go up on the wall that could plug into Haley's computer. So when she dials into the WebEx, we can still see everyone in the meeting. And then all they would see is us from that one camera, which would not be optimal because it'd be a very small view of the entire room, but at least they would have a visual for those people attending online of what's happening within that room. So again, there's pros, which I think this definitely will be $3,000-ish, I would think, or less, versus a $13,000 or $14,000 quote. But it definitely won't be as high tech, and you won't have the public address in the room. So the people speaking in the room, the same problems we've had for years. If there's a quiet speaker, the people in the back of the room may still have trouble hearing that person, but you eliminate a lot of the complexities. As far as the projection system, I also mentioned, I thought we could use the same HD television to use this projector where you just plug in your computer and you can share PowerPoints or whatever on that television. He again pointed out that could absolutely work and would be much less expensive. His points were you can't retract the television, which we agreed. And, it wasn't quite as big. I think he quoted a 60 by 96 projector screen, which is much bigger than what television we would probably get somewhere in that 70-inch range. So you're talking 20 inches less on projector size. But he was saying that, the type of projector, because we have so many windows in that room, you need a very strong lumen bulb that will be visible in that room. And because we wanted a electrical retracting screen and several other things he pointed out as to why that projector system would cost so much. He did think there was cheaper alternatives. We appreciated and thanked him for his quote and his time, and said that we would like him to look into these other alternatives, which is what he thought he would do. Again, he came back and said that he couldn't progress with it as not his expertise. So my point to you guys is I guarantee less than $5,000. I would assume less than $3,000. We could get some kind of 80 for 20 system. Again, it's not going to be nearly the bells and whistles of what he would have quoted out, but it would get us to be able to call in a conferencing system from that township hall and be able to speak with people who are on the phone and still have some visual of those folks. Their visual of us will be relatively limited, and I mean very limited, because you're talking one small camera, WebEx camera, that has on the whole room versus one that's 12 inches from my face today. But it's the same type of camera. If you were to look at my entire spare bedroom in here, if I'm sitting in the back of that, you're not going to see them very well. So I just wanted to give you guys an update on that, and then we can talk through the bathroom and any of the other CARES pieces.
Thank you for looking into that. I'm 100% with the cheaper version for the AV audiovisual for the room. I know Perry Townships is a single camera. I've watched a couple of their meetings on YouTube, and it's a single camera in the ceiling, pointed down basically towards them, and it's just fine for what they do, and which is a similar size room. I've been in theirs as well. So similar size room, theirs is much older, but older room, but I think that's the way to go. The kit with the rest of what you mentioned and what Jeremy mentioned earlier, the toilets, the faucets, I think are important. Paper towel dispensers, soap dispensers, but for me, as much money as we can put towards the police department in the end with these a few minor upgrades to our building, I think is important for our township going forward, hopefully to prevent a levy at some point in the future, at least by a year, maybe two.
I agree with Mr. Stubbs. I appreciate your time and energy that you put into looking into this. And I think this is much more budget-friendly idea. As much as that sounds really nice to have that fancy camera and everything, I'm not sure that it's something that we necessarily need. So I think that this is a better route for what I guess we need in our township.
Okay, and on that note, Mrs. Rohrbrecht passed me the contact for our other landline service, so I'll reach out to them. She suggested they might be a good alternative and try to get competitive quotes to see what alternatives. Hopefully, they can do more than just the Starfish audio conference piece, that they might actually be willing to do the camera. I would hate to have to get someone, but it might be okay. We can find someone that does the camera and television mounts all that and runs the wires for us on that piece of it. So I'll do my best to try to get a couple quotes and have them ready for our next meeting. Well, that's the only thing is, Mr. Heaston, can you remind us when we need these installed before year end? That's fine. I guess early November is our next meeting. If we get the quotes and get it approved at that one, we probably can progress and we'll be okay. It's just going to be getting a little bit tighter with the holidays.
I think we'll be fine if we meet on November 9th and finalize how much goes to here, there, and the rest, that if we want to put it against the police. That will allow me time to allocate all the funds before the 20th and not have to return anything to the county. And then we will just have to make sure that restrooms and the conferencing system or anything else between now and then that we come up with gets installed before the end of December.
Were we waiting for a quote for a digital sign out front? Do we know? Did anybody have a quote for a digital sign?
I don't recall if that was a takeaway that anyone had last week. We can make that one, knowing that in November we still have an opportunity to approve. I think we can move forward with the restrooms tonight. I think obviously there's work to be done on the electric or on the audio conferencing stuff. We can also do the marquee piece as well.
I know Jackson Township said last night that they were looking at a sign for out front of theirs. But when the first quote came back, they needed to scale down what they were doing. So it was much too expensive for what they were looking for. I also know Jackson Township donated $15,000 or sub-granted $15,000 to camp last night as well, which was a great idea, I believe, too. So for their community. So there's other options going forward, but again, I'm firmly believe that what we can't make good use out of needs to go towards the police.
I'm completely aligned. I wasn't going to get into this in detail, and I don't think it's worth having a long discussion, but I had done the work on looking back over the last 5 years and stuff, and I'll just pass it over to the department heads. I know they make their budgets just to give them, what background I have, but I think it would make a lot of sense to pass as much as we can to the police department to try to, sustain that budget as long as we possibly can without going back to the people for a levy there.
Talking CARES Act funding, and I know I brought this up to Jeremy, your opinion on switching over, he said it was a very minimal fee, switching over to the light switches so that they were an automatic motion sensor. It sounds like some of them already are. Do you guys have any feeling if we have him change those over so that they're an automatic motion?
I don't think you want the meeting room on automatic motion just in case you're in the middle of a presentation and the lights go out.
No, that makes sense, yes.
For the rest of it, I wouldn't see an issue with, but I wouldn't touch the meeting room with any upgrade like that.
I also don't like them in restrooms. The women's restroom, please, no.
What about in offices?
Not in the police department side. That
they are very sensitive. I know.
Not going to work. If we're in the middle of recording an interview and nobody's up wandering around and the lights go out, how bad is that? If we have any kind of prisoner in our side of the building and the lights go out, that's not safe. So for the police department, I would highly recommend that you bypass that. That's just not a good idea. The other offices, as long as you don't mind sitting there waving your arm once in a while, it doesn't matter. I mean, the trash billing, that would be awkward because when today, I entered 136 payments. For 2 hours, I did not move except to flip over checks. The light would have gone out numerous times. But if you want it in the trash billing office, I mean, I'm not gonna be there that much longer. That's up to you, but just the police department would be totally a safety hazard.
And I don't think we have an issue with people leaving lights on when they're not in rooms. It's been my experience since I've been here. The rooms are locked, the lights are off when people aren't in them. So outside of, the bathroom, and Lori has expressed her displeasure with the women's bathroom getting one. I mean, definitely don't want one in the meeting room. You don't want one on the police side. So I think that might not.
I have no problem with the women's restroom. I know we have them all over my building, and it's not, they are very sensitive. Even if your arm raises up to flip stuff, it does alert the light. I'm not there every day, so I just thought it was a suggestion. He said it was very user friendly, I guess, to put in, and he was able to do it. So I thought, well, why not just go ahead and update that if we're able to do that? So
well, sometimes we have prisoners in the women's restroom too. We bring DEs in, and so sometimes that might be awkward if we have prisoners in there. Just so you know.
Yeah, that was my only question, in addition to the CARES money.
Mr. Stubbs, are you wanting someone to quote a marquee?
If that's something you guys are interested in, I mean, we could have our meeting dates posted outside. You can do that remotely. I know Jackson Township mentioned last night that it has to be COVID related. So if you put a wash your hands banner on there as part of your scroll, you're covered with the funding. But to let people know the meeting time so they don't have to get out of their car, it makes sense to me, but I also don't want to spend $15,000 on a sign. So again, I'm fine with what we have now. If it's cost efficient, I'm fine with it. If not, again, I think as much to the police department as possible. Also, safety on 725 with the scrolling sign might be an issue too. Coming up that hill and then trying to read what's on the board going past. So that was just an idea I threw out there last month, and I was just curious where you guys were or what you thought about the potential for the idea.
I mean, I do think it updates our building. I know that's what a lot of businesses are going to, or schools, churches, that the rolling marquee. So I'm not opposed to it. At least looking at what the cost would be, I'm not opposed to that at all. And I would think it would fall under CARES Act because, like you said, people are not having to get out of their cars. They're staying attuned to what is going on without having to get out and speak to somebody, things of that nature. So I'm fine with that if that's what you would like to do.
Let me find out who Jackson Township is getting their quote from, and I'll see what I can do about getting one a quote for us as well.
Within the last year, my church, Germantown United Methodist, installed a digital sign out in front of our building, and we paid well in excess of $15,000 for ours. So if that is helpful at all, that's what we did.
So most likely it's unattainable, but I'll look into it and see what we can do. Again, at the end of the day, we want to do what's best for the residents of German Township. And a marquee or scrolling sign would be nice, but I really don't know what the traffic impact would be at 55 miles an hour. Most of them are in towns, and Jackson's Townships is going to be on a 25 mile an hour road. So I'll look into it and I will report back next month.
That wraps up all the things I had to discuss. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other new business to discuss this evening?
Do we want to make a decision on the plumbing?
Oh, yes, I think that would probably be a good idea. That way they could start working on that.
Yeah, I think those supplies are kind of along the supplies for the camera and stuff like that. I think a lot of people are updating their facilities, and I know Mr. Dill had made mention that he was doing the exact same thing for Spring Valley, I think, doing all touchless stuff for them. So I'm kind of concerned that if we don't act on that, and I think we're all pretty comfortable, correct me if I'm wrong, that this is going to fall under the CARES Act funding with no issues. But it would be my suggestion that we make some action tonight so we can at least get this stuff ordered. And I did inform Mr. Dill that this stuff would have to be installed and operational by December 31st. And he didn't think that there would be a problem with that. So.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we're good. Thank you.
All right. So we have All right. Yes, as long as Mr. Stubbs or Mr. Raymer has no issue, I will make is it a resolution you would need for that, Mr. Houston?
I would like it be done by resolution because we're going to be carefully monitored through the auditors on how we use this money. So anytime we spend it, let's put it in a resolution. And Mrs. Reed, if you're going to introduce the resolution, in addition to Mr. Dill's estimate, I would also include those items that Jeremy has said that he can install himself, the touchless paper towel dispenser and the touchless soap dispenser.
Okay. I believe it is 2020-30. Is that correct, Mr. Houston?
2020-30 it is.
I would like to introduce resolution 2020-30 to accept the bid from Dill Plumbing for the installation of the fixtures in the both women's and men's restroom, as well as purchasing automatic soap dispensers and paper towel dispensers where needed in the bathroom. And then I think we have some in the small kitchen area as well that could be updated.
Is there a second to resolution 2020-30?
I will second.
Any discussion of the resolution?
Jeremy, if you could also, as long as it's okay with the other trustees, install that automatic soap dispenser and paper towel dispenser out where the kitchen area, the refrigerator, that sort of thing is. I think that would also be beneficial.
Okay, that would not be a problem.
Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, I will call the roll on resolution 2020-30. Mrs. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Stubbs,
Yes.
and Mr. Raymond.
Yes.
Resolution 2020-30 is adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Holbrook, for reminding us of that. It completely slipped my mind, so I really appreciate that. It needed taken care of. Do we have any other new business this evening that we need to address?
I just wanted to announce that the city of Germantown, and I presume German Township also, will hold Beggars Night on Saturday, October 31st from 6 to 8 p.m. And in case anyone is interested in knowing it, it is going to be a full moon that night. And it's actually the second full moon in October, so it's what's known as a blue moon. And I believe the next time Halloween falls on a blue moon is like in 25 years or more. So very interesting.
Well, hopefully the weather holds up for the kids.
And just for my benefit as a Lion, we always hold what we call the Ghost and Goblins Parade, which is a costume contest at Veterans Park at 8 o'clock on Beggars Night. The Lions Club, due to the COVID situation, will not be holding that this year.
All right, thank you for that update. I know you guys have a huge turnout at Veterans Park for that.
And that's the reason why we felt we needed to cancel.
Yeah. Yes. Do we have any other new or old business?
One last thing, I'll make it very quick. Mr. Houston, you had discussed potentially shifting the night for our meeting. I didn't know if that's something we want to chat really quickly.
We could talk about that if you want tonight, Mr. Raymond. I was going to bring this up at the organizational meeting in January because the meeting dates were selected and approved at the January 2020 organizational meeting. So I did not really want to make that change this year, but if you'd like to talk about it, we can certainly do so.
I mean, we got 2 more meetings this year just for us to ponder if we have good days next year. I think Mr. Houston brought up a good point. He has a couple significant roles in the community and there's a conflict, and I would not be opposed to moving our meeting if necessary to help take some stress off of that situation. And I'm sure there might be a better night for us as well, but just something for us to think about in advance of that January meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, we're required by law to post it in January. So definitely a discussion for January, but thank you for bringing it up.
In terms of old business, I think now that we have selected the new police clerk, it's time for us to discuss who will be handling the trash billing once Lori Rohrback retires in January.
I know that we had discussed this previously, short and not a very long discussion, but my understanding of our previous discussion was that once that person was selected, we were going to kind of let them, I'll say, maybe ease into it a little bit and then see if they were interested in it or if we had other applicants that were interested in that. That's what I recall, but I could be off. Mr. Raymond or Mr. Stubbs, are you recalling something different or?
I have
I think that's right.
I had a couple of things. I know, Mr. Heason, you had mentioned Shanoa was helping us with that, correct? And I don't know how long that was supposed to last. And then there was going to be, after that, a discussion on where we want to go.
Shanoa was only here, I believe, 2 days, maybe 3, a couple of months ago. Once the senior center opens, I know that her schedule will probably not allow her to take on that role. But without knowing what the city's plans are at this point for the senior center, I can't address that any further than that.
Okay.
I also might note that when she was here, she did not do the payments. She only helped with that once a year tax assessment mailing. So she was just folding and stuffing basically. She didn't enter payments or handle money.
Financially, this is a very significant position. It doesn't involve a lot of hours, but a lot of money moves through the trash office. And so we need to be cognizant of that situation. Most of it is checks, but I know we do get some cash. And maybe we want to consider moving forward some kind of an automatic payment option that people can do. Maybe using credit cards. Those are things that we can consider, but I know we only have 2 regular meetings before January, so we can't wait too long to make this decision.
The credit card payments are waiting on the software. When the trash billing software used to be DAWS. It was purchased by another company who had to write the software. So we're hoping by next summer that it would be ready to take credit card payments. But as of this minute, it's not ready yet. They're still in that phase of designing that software. That's why we don't so far, just so you know.
I believe, if I'm not misremembering, Haley, you're still on the call. Did you had noted your interest in this role? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And is that still the case?
Yes.
And so is there, I think there's, Haley to consider in addition. I don't know what's been communicated to the person that's in that role. And if there's, for some reason, this is under Chief Anzik and he wants to decide or whatever, we need to have that discussion. But I think it makes sense that we have an employee that's also interested in it as well.
We may need to have an executive session next month to discuss which is appropriate for this situation.
Correct.
So we may want to go ahead and put that on the agenda for November, and maybe make a decision that night.
Prior to that, I completely agree with you, Mr. Stubbs. I'm just making a note, so I go ahead and add that to the agenda. We would need to probably check with Mrs. Klaus. I hope I'm saying her name correctly, because she would have started on the 1st, so she would have had 8 days to settle into that new position and be trained to see if she even has any interest in adding that to her role.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I make a comment about the credit card payment stuff?
Yes, go ahead.
So I do know that there are some platforms, I don't know the cost or anything like that, to do credit card payments over the phone. Whereas like they could come in or give us their credit card number over the phone, and we can submit it over the telephone. I'm not exactly sure how that works with the bank specifically, but I do know some places that do that. I don't know if that's an option that we can look into until the credit card over the internet gets started.
It is an option, but there's problems with it in the cost. Because we're
Right.
small and we would only be taking in so much money, it would be like between $3 and $5 per transaction. So do you pass that along to everybody, or just to, if you pay credit card? Then you have to add the fee schedule for the credit card payment. If they see, there's still some things that are working out to make it work. It's
Sure.
not that I'm saying that we can't do it. It's just that the protocols and the platform's not worked out with this software yet because of there's so many variations. If you know, what will happen probably before credit card payment is just doing the online. That will be, I think, will come before the credit card payment, so people just log in and basically pay it that way. So there's still things to work out, and you have to look at that added cost because we are small for the credit card.
Right. Yeah, I do know that there are some companies that I've dealt with who, if you do make a credit card payment over the phone, they charge like an additional 3% fee or whatever it is that the company that processes it charges.
Right. And then we have to add that into the software because you have to account for that, and it has
Right.
to be accounted separate from the actual trash fees, the billing
Right.
fees. Yeah. See what, it's a snowball thing. So it's in
Yep.
the works, it's being worked on, and hopefully by summer it will be resolved. But at this minute, it's still a little premature.
Yep. And every time you get into something like that, it's just a domino effect. You find more and more little things that you have to put in order.
It was mentioned that you might want to have an executive session at the November meeting to discuss this, since it is a hiring situation. Might I suggest that we hold a special in-person meeting with the announced purpose to go immediately into executive session, and as soon as we come out of executive session, we adjourn the meeting? In other words, announce that there will be no business transacted at the meeting. If you held that prior to the November 9th regular meeting, either that same day or an earlier day, and then you could make your decision at the public meeting that we would hold in November. Otherwise, I'm not sure how we can do an executive session on a WebEx call.
I'm fine with that.
I'm comfortable with that as long as we fall within our legal bounds to be able to meet in person and then go back to WebEx if need be. But I'm comfortable with that.
Also with that, since I would assume be getting a WebEx meeting also, even though it wouldn't all be recorded because it would be an executive session. Would you guys be able to use Township Hall since it will only be you four in the room? And that would give you plenty of space to spread.
I don't think we would need WebEx if we state the purpose as going into executive session with no action to be taken that night.
Okay.
I don't believe we would need to have a WebEx meeting for that.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Heaston, but I don't see a purpose for turning on a meeting that will have 10 seconds of it in total.
I'm comfortable with that, Mr. Stubbs.
Would we like to go ahead and set a meeting date for that before the 9th? Preferably not the 5th or 6th?
I think we could do that Monday, the Tuesday, the 2nd. I think it was just because Germantown's meeting that we didn't do that Monday before.
Yes, I'm free. The 2nd. I don't know if we want to have 2 meetings in 1 week.
No, that's
the
fine. I
two-
mean, it should be pretty brief. So
And also the 2 weeks prior to that, the last 2 weeks of October, there's nothing on the calendar in Township Hall.
So
I think the only thing with waiting to November is gives Mr. Stubbs a chance to find out the interest from anyone else.
yeah, definitely we'll check with the new hire, Mrs. Close, and we'll see where we need to go from there. But I would suggest November 2nd at maybe 6 p.m.
Good with me?
I'm good with that date and time.
I think we might have lost Abra. Hers has an error sign on it, on my screen at least.
Hmm.
Abra, can you hear us?
I don't know what to do.
I don't know
Well,
either.
Here's what I think we should do. If Mr. Stubbs and Mr. Raymond are both available on November 2nd at 6 o'clock, I heard Mrs. Reed say before we lost her that she was available. Let's go ahead and set that meeting. Let's go ahead and adjourn this meeting because I don't think we have any more business. And we'll close the meeting.
So before we do that, I believe Mr. Garone raised his hand at some point. Hi, Abra.
So luckily I had another one right here, so I just quickly jumped over to this one. I apologize. It says I'm on 2 right now, but my one is not on. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Haley.
That's
Mr.
okay.
Groen had a comment.
All I
Yeah,
was
so
all I was going to say is
Yes, so you could click to not use the motion sensor. So if you went in your office, you could actually hit a button. Mr. Groen is correct. And they would stay on then, so you wouldn't have to be waving your arm as Mrs. Rohrbeck said. So if you knew you were just going to be sitting in one spot, you just hit that button as you come in, just like you would a normal light switch, and then it would stay on. So they do have both of those options on that switch.
Mr.
We have that in
Groen,
the
I
kitchen.
go ahead. Sorry, Mrs. Rohrbeck. Go ahead.
We have that in the kitchen and it flickers. It's not a good situation for an office.
Mr. Groen, we all know you. Will you give us your address, please?
14239 Kiefer Road, Germantown, Ohio. Does the switch have a fan on it? They don't like inductive loads like that.
Now you're beyond my knowledge. I don't know anything about a fan. I just know it flickers and we get extremely dizzy in there. So we don't use that function. We just turn it on and off as we walk in, and it's just weird.
do you think maybe it's because it's older? Could that be it?
That could very well be that once Jeremy fixes everything, that it'll be just fine. It's just, and that might be it. It's just doesn't work real well in the kitchen, and you're right, it might be old. That's been in there for a long time.
I got another question. I think Jeremy could probably find out the specifics on the load that thing can take. The second question has to do with the payment. I know at our church you can give to the church, and it is an expense of 25 cents per transaction. That's a far cry from any $5. Then that other thing is, being a programmer from way back, you don't ever pay for software development. That should be a product that's finished and already developed and marketable.
I can't figure out this mute and unmute on this other computer, I guess. Mr. Groen, she said $3 to $5. I thought that seemed quite a bit high as well. I was hoping once they got that developed all the way, they would have a lower fee, I guess, because I know as a pay my trash bill online, that's a significant fee for paying one bill online. So hopefully they get those kinks worked out.
Well, I would talk to other people that use it, such as our church treasurer, as an example, but I'm sure other people do it. I know that it's 25 cents per transaction. You can give $5 or $100,000 and you pay 25 cents. Now, who pays the 25 cents doesn't matter. It's the giver or the institution that you're giving to, but that 25 cents per transaction is all it costs.
It's a much more reasonable cost.
Yeah, I do know some platforms that you can do that on. Sometimes it's a percentage and sometimes it's a flat rate. So it just depends on how they have it set up.
Several credit card companies, or when you pay to be able to run credit cards through, they base it off of the amount that you bring in. So if your business is only running $100 worth of credit cards a month, you're going to get a higher fee versus running $10,000 a month. You actually get a lower fee. So that does play into that as well. And so obviously we've never done it that way. So we can't tell the people, what we're going to be able to bring in monthly or quarterly or however it's done then. Do we have any other new or old business?
Mrs. Reed, well, during the time that we lost you, we were talking about a executive session special meeting on November 2nd at 6 o'clock.
Yes. That works for me. Thank you. I apologize again that I got kicked off, but thank you for filling me in. I will mark that on my calendar. Did we have any other new or old business? If not, I'm not seeing any. I will make a motion to adjourn at 9:18.
Second.
Sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night. Thanks.